All right, everyone. So let's just sink in. You know the drill. Just let your eyes take in a wide view in front of you, attention at the forehead and crown. And let's just sink into this moment. Let the day that's been spinning around just kind of lose its momentum and kind of fall to the ground. Here they all come. All right, everybody. So I'm going to put people on mute, but if you guys have any questions or, if you have anything you'd like to talk about tonight, I'm open. So you can either unmute yourself and ask a question, or you can put something in the chat and we'll make sure we address it. Up to you. Otherwise, we'll just roll with the flow of the night. Now, I do see some new names in here tonight, and so I think it would probably be a good idea if we just give a quick rundown of what we're doing and what meditation is. This is something a lot of you have heard before, but you can never hear it too many times. There's no such thing as advanced meditation. The beginning is the end, if you're doing it right. So the most important thing I can tell you about meditation is that meditation is not about you. Everything in your day is about you. Even when it doesn't seem like it's about you, it's about your personal stories and the effect that different relationships are having on you, or the effect your job is having on you. Even when it's about someone else, it's always kind of about your personal story. And that personal story is, frankly, just a temporary thing that you've been piecing together since you were a small child. It's little more than a string of likes and dislikes and attitudes and opinions. And for the most part, that story dictates all of your limitations. You've got this natural part inside of you that is this beautiful, radiant, intelligent light. And then you've got this story, this personality, this sense of yourself, this list of characteristics that you apply to yourself and everyone in your world and your life. And that beautiful, radiant, intelligent part of yourself fills out to the boundaries of that story and goes no further. We're holding all of that in check. And that's not a problem. One of the most beautiful things about life is the ability to tell myriad, beautiful stories. The problem comes in when we end up living the same 5 or 6 days over and over and over again, where nothing changes because we don't know how to move beyond the boundaries of our own personal story. It's what we want. If you look at any movie, It's all about somebody moving beyond the boundary of their personal story. It's the goal of every living creature, or every living human. But we don't do it, we get stuck. So what meditation is it's an opportunity to move beyond the story. And you do that by literally shifting your attention off of the story and on to anything else. That's why there are so many different techniques for meditation. They all work because they all take your attention off the story of you. See, your attention is this very powerful thing. Whatever you look at, you become. Whatever captures your attention, you become, and you build upon it, and it gets magnified. And that's why your story seems so interesting to you. But when you take your attention off of that, what's left? What's left when your story is no longer there is the real you. And that real you is vast. It's absolutely huge. It encompasses the entire universe. And to experience that, all you have to do is shift your attention. A simple, sustained shift in the attention can begin to loosen the confines of your personal story and over a period of time allow you to slip into the vast, beautiful consciousness that you are. And an added bonus of that is that when you're done, you know that story very well, so you will find yourself shifting right back into it. So there's nothing to be afraid of. There's really nothing to lose. But you can gain the ability to leave your prison. You can gain the ability to leave that story behind. And that process of going back and forth between your story to the freedom of you, and then back into the story, and then back into the freedom of you, does something at a very fundamental level within you. It shows you how life works. It shows you how your attention works. And it actually frees you more and more from your own belief in that personal story. You get to a point where you can have it where it serves you and let it go where it doesn't. And the entire time, being in your natural self is just opening up a natural flow of energy through your body, a natural relationship with the world around you. Everything just gets better and better, not as some crazy upswing, but more like when the energy you need to feel fulfilled just sort of comes in from behind you and supports you. That's what this does. That's why people come here. And that's why this is worth learning. So in this class, the way that we do this is we shift our attention onto the breath. The reason we do that is because you're always breathing. The second you stop breathing for any length of time, that's kind of it for your life. So in this life, there is this constant cycle of breath happening. And the beauty of the breath is that the breath is not only voluntary, but it's also involuntary. So it provides a way to really kind of touch your subconscious self deeply. It's one of the fastest ways to get into the meditative state. So here's how we do it. You're going to place your attention at the forehead and crown. And what I mean by that is if you just right now scratch your forehead and knock on the top of your head a little bit, and just notice that feeling that remains. That noticing of the feeling at the forehead and crown is all we're talking about. It's nothing more esoteric than that. Okay? And then from there, you're going to leave your eyes open because you live with your eyes open, but you're just going to let them fall to a spot on the floor in front of you or on the desk in front of you. Just anchor them somewhere so that you don't have to think about them. Try doing that now. Okay? Forehead and crown. Anchor your eyes on the floor or on something in front of you. And then from there, you're going to begin to breathe. Only as you're breathing, you give every fiber of your being to your awareness of the breath. Now I know I said give your awareness to the forehead and crown, but what you'll find is that whenever you're truly focused on anything, especially the breath, you will naturally feel focused at the forehead and or crown. So just breathe in, breathe out, find your own rhythm, nothing to manipulate, nothing to conjure. Do that for just a few moments. Just give all your attention to the breath. That means you're listening to the breath. You're watching the breath. You're feeling the breath. The movement of your ribs. The pressure on your belly as you inhale. And I want you to watch so closely that you even start to notice this little space in between the breaths. As you reach the top of the breath, but right before you exhale, there's this little opening, this little of nothing space. And when you go down to the bottom of the breath, right before you switch from the exhale to the inhale, there's this little of nothing space. It's there in between every breath. If you can't notice it, then just focus on the breath. It'll come to you. But if you can notice it, that little opening is actually a window into the meditative state. You don't have to go through the window. You just have to be aware of that experience. And that experience will follow you as you ride the breath down to the next window. And then you're just aware of it. You just clock it. And then it'll follow you back up to the top of the breath, where I think the window is even easier to see. And you just become aware of that. That window is the fastest way out of the personality and into your true self. Do that now while you listen to me. Just see what you can see. Now, one of the first mistakes people make when they find themselves on the other side of that window is they start describing the experience to themselves in their head. What that does is it brings you back into the story. In the beginning, that'll be hard to control. And my advice is, don't try to control it. Instead, just take your attention off of it and place it on the breath. You don't have to hold anything at bay. You just have to choose where you're going to place your attention. Nothing to fight, nothing to resist. And there's nothing to figure out. As that experience starts to open in you, just let it be exactly what it is. If it's boring, let it be boring. Here I am, sitting with my eyes open, breathing, there's nothing going on, and I feel bored as I watch my breath. Stay with that. Don't ask it to be different. It looks boring in the beginning because you have no experience with it. You'll find after a time that it's the opposite of boring. It's actually a new day. It'll be one of the first new experiences you've had in a long time. Not conditional upon your memories, not conditional upon how you feel about life, not conditional on you. It's an experience with the part of you that you don't have to hold in place with this incessant internal dialogue. It's what's there when you stop projecting things. And if you can just sit with it, it will build. And it will show you slowly and steadily what you really are, what this life is really about. And in time, you'll find that everything you've been looking for through entertainment, through alcohol, through food, through pride, all those things you've been doing your entire life that have never once actually brought you the feeling you were reaching for, this will. This will bring you a feeling of completion. Why? Because you've shifted your attention from the story of lack. Lack is just a story you use to cover up the canvas of completion. Weakness is a story that you use to cover up the canvas of personal power and strength. You've worked so hard to try and find these things, but the only way you're going to find them is through the not doing, through letting it all go and just being with what's left. So sit with me, focus on your breath, focus on the space in between the breaths. And when the mind, the personality, comes in to try and pull your attention away, which it will, don't fight it, don't do anything with it. Just gently return to the breath. Return to the breath. Return to the breath. This is the great secret of the universe. All you have to do is actually do it. Try that now. Slow yourself way down. That feeling of rushing is actually part of your personal story. So slow yourself down. Get in sync with this eternal moment. That little resistance you feel is just energy that's accumulated from your day. Go ahead and let it feel a little uncomfortable. It's just like a little clenched hand, and if you just keep going, it's going to open right up. What if you just let it be exactly as it is? What if you started from a place of unconditional acceptance? Here you are in a room, breathing. What if that's enough? What if you just let go of that stress in your stomach and that clenching around your heart, and just let it unfold into this exact moment where you're sitting in a room, breathing, and nothing else? going. Let the story clean out. Let it change your feeling body. Nothing in life asks this of you. You have to give it to yourself. Now let's move our attention down to the heart. Come into the center of your chest and just be aware of the feeling there as you breathe in, breathe out, and nothing else. And anywhere you feel a resistance, just make it available to the breath. You don't have to do anything. The breath will take care of it. You just have to stop clenching around it. Just make it available so that the breath can touch it and begin working on it. Do that now. Now let your attention sink down to the lower center, just below the navel. A big ball in the center of your body, just below the level of your navel. Sink into this grounded, earthy center and just breathe from that place. Just the simplicity of the breath. Breathe from the lower center. You are grounded in a physical body. You are substantial. And this is the ground of your human consciousness. Stable, rooted, Some of you really need that tonight. Feel the roots of that reaching into the earth beneath you. And discharge through those roots your anxiety. You are not an isolated matrix. You're part of the matrix of the earth. The earth can ground those feelings and provide you with stability. Now rise back up to the heart. Say to yourself, I am available. I am available. I am available to participate. I am available to share. I am willing. Now ask yourself this question. You don't have to answer it, just ask it. How are things maybe okay exactly the way they are? How are things maybe okay exactly the way they are? What if none of this is a problem? What if everything is exactly the way it needs to be? What if everything is exactly the way it needs to be? Now notice what that does to your heart. When you loosen those stories of lack, Now come back up to the head center, forehead and crown, and go back to just breathing. Notice how different your basic meditation is after having done that. Notice the windows into the nothing space in between the breaths. for all the nuances of human life. There are really two basic forces that need the most attention. There's this bright, powerful, expansive force, and then there's this contractive force. And we experience them both every day in different ways. You know, when I had you asking those questions of yourself, it was because there was a part of you that was too contracted. The way the mind works, if you just tell it what to do, it won't do it. But if you ask a question that the subconscious has to kind of play with and work on, then it can kind of get in there and start unraveling. And it changes you. A simple question has a lot of power, more power than a statement, in my opinion. But then there are other parts where we're too expansive. You know, expansive looks and feels bright and wonderful when it's expanding away from contraction. But then if it keeps going, it loses all of its power and you just kind of start to unravel. You know, we see this with people who get addicted to hard drugs. We see this with people who get addicted to crazy relationships. Both forces have to be kept in balance. You know, you come here and you do something like this, and by the end of it, you feel better. You feel better because you have applied this therapy to your consciousness. And yet I would bet that most people during the week don't practice this on their own. Some do. But the norm has always been a bunch of people trying to make themselves do it. You're too expansive where you need to contract, and you're too contracted where you need to expand. And the thing you contract the most on is your stories of suffering. Why? I can tell you the reason you do it is because you think it's protecting you from something. But it's not. You have to get in there and just massage those open. Life needs to become more flexible so that you can bring even new stories in. But the roads that lead you to realizations like that, those need to be less expansive. You need to bring in just the slightest amount of discipline to hold that sort of a practice in place, even 15 minutes a day. And then what happens is you can just start to vacillate between these balance points of expansion and contraction. And then it all looks the way you feel at the end of a session like this. Balanced, radiant, contained, and released. Contained and released within that container. This week, I'd like you to work with that a little bit. I want you to notice what stuck, overly contracted storylines you have. And I want you to ask yourself questions like, how is this maybe not a problem? Where is the freedom in this? How is this maybe a blessing leading me to my next step? Open things up. And then take things like your spiritual practice. Whether this is your main practice or you have another one, it doesn't matter. That thing that brings you to this place, make sure you do it every day. Do it in a way that you can do it, but do it every day. Not to be tight, just to put a little tension on the reins so that you're not just blown away by life. Can you work on that this week? All right, anybody, if anybody has questions or anything they'd like to talk about, I'm happy to answer them. Can you say that again, Bob? They are everything. Thank you. Yeah, those spaces in between the breath are the doorway. It's the fastest way in. You know, eventually that space between the breath, what you see in that space becomes the foreground and everything else just sort of becomes the background when you keep kind of going down that road. You know, it's all still there, it's just arranged differently. All right, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm going to let you get back to your night, and I will be here again next Thursday. Thank you. Have a good night.